If there is a newspaper that embodies a change maker, then it has to be City AM. This daily has proclaimed itself as business with personality. It's not shy on opinion, viewpoints, and creating a few waves along the way. It's no surprise then that its founders, Jens Torpe and Lawson Muncaster, are entrepreneurs that sought to break the mold from their very first day in business. So I want to take you back to 2005. That was the startup year, if you will, and the pundits were not very confident about what was going to happen. I mean, it's allegedly said that Andrew Neil gave you about 12 weeks before you went bust. I mean, what was the sort of view on the other side of that with a brand new startup in a very established field?
No, I think that was just part of what really galvanized us, because when that message came back that we only had 12 weeks and close before Christmas, having started in September, the whole organization just felt we're going to show them all. So it was actually a help.
Yeah, I think I also had I'll give a little bit of, I think Andrew as well, because obviously it did give you that buzz, that fight. But I remember speaking...
Fellow Scott, was that like a stab in the back?
I thought we had a McMafia down here. But Kelvin McKenzie, God bless his Scotland socks, I phoned him up. I said, what would you do? He said, listen, exactly that. Do nothing, don't retaliate, just go and prove them wrong. So that was a nice wee bunch back.
But there hasn't been a good track record of successful startup newspapers. I mean, you were going against the grain by starting up City AM. Right?
Yeah, but I think we actually came with a concept which is slightly between being a newspaper and being part of your workday. So we have become part of people's workday.
Right.
And I think when you're thinking of work, it's a question of efficiency, to be speedy. And I mean, if you glance through City AM, I tell you, you have a better overview in a minute than if you're sitting with your mobile or tablet.
But so here we are over a decade later. Was that always the plan from the start? To have that as that digestible piece of content?
I think the genius that Jens brought to it was the fact that people were getting used to downloading small bits of information online, and actually the ability to communicate 3 or 4 facts in a graphic or a small piece was what people had become used to. So having that strategic thought process right from the beginning was write small, make it punchy, use graphics, let people understand. But that's almost knowledge gap that we filled in the morning, rather than sort of our experiences from Metro where let's fill a time gap.
Right, so let's go back to Metro. I mean, this is where you two first met. I mean, this is where the big Eureka idea came about, was it? Tell us a little bit about that period of your life when you were both employees. I bet that was quite an experience.
He was the boss, and he employed me.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so one of the big strategic failures of my life, yeah. No, what happened was that I was in the company that invented the original Metro concept. So for 5 years previous to City AM, I started up a Metro in 16 different countries worldwide, and Lawson joined quite quickly. And what we saw was wherever we went, to Chile, Hong Kong, France, or whatever, our newspapers were picked up right from the start, as opposed to the normal newspapers where people had to go out of their way or subscribe. This was just a concept that worked. So we thought, where all the other papers are mainstream, why don't we concentrate on the most profitable niche, which has always been business papers? There was a big hole in London with the FT circulation coming down. So that was when Lawson and me decided we're tired of flying. So we settled in London.
So was there a pivotal meeting? I mean, was there literally a Eureka moment?
It's in our passports, and I think it's the 27th of February.
Where did he go to? Aberdeen?
2004, and we were going to Poland.
Oh, Poland.
I think that we'd been up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get on an aircraft, and it's just one of those long days out.
Right.
And the conversation came about, and I think that was probably the moment where we both agreed that there was something that...
Winter, lousy weather, and finally flying back to London in the evening and seeing all the lights down there. We thought this is the place to do a newspaper, not Warsaw. So,
it was Warsaw the plan B. Don't answer that question. Listen, tell us something. You've become this fantastic double act. I mean, I think, your partners, you've created this business together. Tell us about the formula. How do you work together now?
To be fair, I don't think much has changed really from the start. I think we both understand that Jens and I are one. We're from totally different backgrounds in terms of how we see things. but actually underlying that that's always the way it works. We are together. And it's amazing, just our characters are being slightly different, and we look at things different ways. People sometimes think they can get between us. And I think the beauty we've got is we can actually allow them to do so, and at the same time understand that we're always communicating. So I think from day one, he does his bit, I do my bit. And, you know, they can be frustrating at times, but ultimately we've been together now like an odd couple since, what, 2000?
Yeah, something like that.
Do you think there's? I mean, I'm from a partnership. I've got a co-founder, but and I think there's actually something special about partnerships. I mean, do you get a sense that actually you've done something that's sort of more meaningful because you've done it together than if you tried to do it on your own? Could you have done it on your own?
No, I don't. I couldn't. Lawson just answered. So I think it's a question of some complementary skills, and when you add them together, the old adage that 1 + 1 is a bit more than 2. Yeah. So yeah,
and we know our warts and all, you know. So I think my first ever expense account at Metro International was for a lunch up a hill, and I thought it was.
Was that a decent lunch?
It was an entertaining lunch with clients, an altitude conference, my friend. However, I hadn't quite got to grips with the Swiss franc and the French franc, so I came back. My first expenses through his door was something like £3,000.
So you're the money man, yeah. So
I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
So presumably there've been some tough times along the way. I mean, this is a hard business, right? The paper
still tough times,
right? So how do you sort of keep each other going in terms of actually sort of navigating these choppy waters?
I think if you had been through the meltdown in 2008, when I think everybody who was to take a punt on what would be the first free paper to close, they had said City AM. Instead, it was the London Light. It was, what was it called? London Paper, Murdoch and Associated, who actually closed down.
I think went down.
So I think the fact that we managed to stay afloat also gave us a lot of credibility with the advertisers. And when money came back, we just saw our revenue surge. So having been through that and knowing that there is light at the end of the tunnel does help you a lot.
Now, you've been one of the disruptors, right? I mean, you're one of the first free sheets that you've actually sort of taken and continue to take disruptive business models to market. But do you get a sense that you are also being disrupted by the change in the way we consume media?
I think that people, obviously, it's proven, and the trends go towards more mobile, more desktop, more subscription-based things. But I think that when you're setting an agenda for someone's business day, and it's a little bit corny by saying this, but downloading a City AM is a part of someone's life. And that
Why?
Because if he gets to that water cooler, right, at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's got his boss in front of him, or she's got a boss in front of him, they know about the business day and the agenda already. So that's a tick box. Right? If you believe in business and business people pick it up, it's self-selecting. If you're walking into a meeting or you're talking to a client and you've done there's probably something between 10 to 12 stories per page of 18 pages of business news that we've done for you. We've got 30 journalists creating those small bits, small fact bite-sized pieces to enable you to download that quickly. So it does set your agenda. So I don't think it's any different of reading it online, offline, or whatever, but you walking past your place or going to work, you pick your paper up, you've got a moment in your day to download that information, and you make time for it.
Right, but you've still got a real love of the old-fashioned scoop, haven't you, as a newspaper? I mean, whether it's breaking the, potential demerger of the London Stock Exchange between Germany and the UK. I mean, you've got lots of stories that you like to get in there first with, and you've got a real love of it, haven't you, Steve?
Absolutely, but I think you have to realise that the days of the scoop is almost dead, because 3 seconds after you put it up on your website, it will be across 10 or 15 websites if it is a real scoop. But the belief and coming up with it and being credited for it obviously counts. But the scoop as such, I think, is more or less
So
dead.
do you become more of this kind of aggregated content machine in this new...
We always wanted to be the curator. I mean, just look at the numbers. Lawson says we've got 30 journalists. Let's say they work 7 hours a day. That's 210 hours we have put in to curating the business news for you, so you can consume them in 10, 12 minutes and get an overview.
Right.
I mean, that is a proposition that business people generally like.
And your critics are saying that you're mixing the editorial with the commercial too much as a paper. I mean, how would you respond to that?
I mean, that's just old-fashioned hearsay. I mean, what we've done is we've introduced this sort of editorial stance where we're allowing clients to create a tenancy agreement with ourselves online to allow them to write directly to the journalist page as a journalist, but it's clearly identified by author, by company. And the relationship we have with our audience is, if they misbehave and abuse that privilege, which they would not do for any shaky reason, what they will do is the reader will go,
That's editorial, surely.
No, it's not.
Editorial is something served by the newspaper, have written it, but it is actually paid for. As Lawson says, and that's the important thing, is it signposted, it says where it comes from. Our readers are quite savvy, but the interesting thing is that we've got some of the thought leaders within industries in for City Talk, and some of their articles have a higher page views than some of the best articles we put on. So if you have a business environment, they're interested in seeing what some of the pioneers in industries, what they're thinking, and the content. So actually, it makes sense for the people who do City Talk, for City AM, but also for our readers.
Right, let's go on.
I'll get in trouble from Christian now, okay? I think Christian is our editor is probably the...
It's just between the three of
us. He's the greatest business journalist in Britain today, full stop. You see him on telly.
So this is your editor?
That's our editor. But I do believe one Friday morning that someone from Schroders actually had more views and articles from his City Talk than he did himself. So it just demonstrates that if you write quality journalism, and thought leadership, our readers are interested in that.
Right. So let's move on to London. I mean, this is your beat, right? You know, you're covering the story of London as it approaches some fairly choppy waters. You know, the triggering of Article 50, what a post-Brexit Britain looks like, a very, very different environment than the last few years. Tell me, is London's position as a financial global powerhouse under threat from Brexit?
I think, Jens pointed about in the 70s, I think is a serious consideration. But I think that if you talk to private equity, you talk to hedge funds, you talk to these guys, I'm sure they've got offices in Luxembourg. I'm sure they've set these things up. Will the bosses be leaving? No. There'll be people who will demand phones. But I think they're already aware of what the worst things of nature could happen through Brexit.
Right.
But as a passionate Londoner, I think the city's phenomenal. I don't think people are going to leave London.
And presumably, if the EU does go the other way, London's going to be a pretty great place to be, yes?
Yeah. I don't know how much it's under threat from only specifically Brexit, but look at the last 2-3 years. I think the worst thing is taking anything for granted. You see whole industries being under pressure, not due to Brexit. You see the retail sector being swamped up by Amazon. It's probably coming to financial services in a big speed. So I think that the whole structure is going to change so dramatically over the next 5 or 10 years that not only Brexit, but there's a lot of other things that you have to take serious. So don't ever take any position for granted.
Yeah, and also if you just take something that's quite sad, but it's true, the iconic black taxi is under threat. And that's one synonymous with London, how great London is. Change is happening. It's not necessarily...
Well, we have a driverless car that's still...
Well, I was saying more about Uber.
Right,
but the point is that this city has to change with modern times. But it doesn't mean to say it has to get worse, or it can use those changes, make it better and stronger. And probably, it is the marketplace of the world. It still needs attention, but that is what London is.
So we ain't seen nothing yet?
I hope not.
In terms of how you see this environment for London now, the stories that you think you'll be reporting on over the next coming couple of years, how do you see it? Optimistic, glass half full, glass half empty?
No, I mean, by definition, we are optimistic. We're supporting businesses, and I think a unique thing with the British business community, and especially here in London, is the excellence and the ability to find new ways. So there's reason for optimism. If you think specifically around London financial industries, then what we've heard so far is that it seems not, as we think, that this should be the top priority, because all of London is spinning around the financial services.
Do you think it's almost taken for granted that the city is here, it will always be strong? Is that the way you see the policymakers seeing it?
I'm a Dane, so I'm just listening to what I hear. Sometimes I think I hear too much optimism. I always loved London. I came over here very young, late 60s.
London, right?
That was the center of the world. Not only swinging London, it was design, it was music, it was cars, and it was fashion. Everybody thought that was an unassailable position. Yet 6 years later, you closed your offices Wednesday, 12 o'clock, because you couldn't even pay for the electricity. So I think it's dangerous to take things that are now for granted in the future. And with all the new things that happens, just look back at the last 12 months, I think it takes a very, very determined effort to stay on top. However, if any place are situated for doing it, it would be London.
Right. And in terms of, I mean, you self-styled the paper as business with personality. I mean, is this a great era for business now? Do you get a sense that we've still got great chapters yet to come for British business?
I think that the concept of where business is and where it is in relation to politics has definitely changed. I think business is getting more pissed off. I'm being very honest with you. But I think
we'll delete that. In the
okay.
But it's getting annoyed.
It's
right?
getting annoyed.
Right.
But I suddenly think that through Trump, through what's happening in Europe, Brexit, etc., there is a dual responsibility between politic and business now to work it out amongst themselves, because there's no question that business keeps the heart of the country pumping.
Do you agree with that, Jens? Actually, there is this sense that actually the temperature's rising, businesses wanting more from government in terms of, I guess, some sort of sense of certainty about what the future looks like.
They would like it, but I think the big problem is that nobody, and that includes Whitehall, Downing Street 10, nobody knows anything about the starting position until that paragraph 50 is served, because there are so many uncertainties coming into the whole thing. What happens with the French election, the Dutch and the German?
Italians.
So I think it's very, very much a question of seeing what are the starting positions. And one thing I'd caution about is, the exuberance, how well the UK has done after Brexit. I mean, we haven't seen anything yet, and we'll only see the real thing in 2 years.
So if I was able to wave my magic wand and allow you to start City AM again today in London in 2017, would you still do it?
I certainly would still do it. I think I'd probably do it in the same way. Although that we see this whole trend going online, and I do believe that we have more readers now online than we do offline. But to create a brand and create empathy with the demographics such as business people, I think it's so important to have a physical product to say this is who we are. Talking about, let's just touch the word fake news for 1 second. But partly we're not going to talk for ages about it. But
I'm sure you don't.
But someone wants to see that is what I'm standing up for, and that's who I am. So I think even today we would always say that the marketing tool of a newspaper, to actually talk to someone on a daily level personally, engages with that audience and therefore creates that empathy. And I think that is so important going forward if you want people to believe what you're saying, the integrity of what you have as a business, and that relationship going forward.
Right. And Jens, last word to you. Do it all again? 2017 a good year to do it?
Could be. Let's see what's happening. Yes, I think we'll do it once again. I mean, the whole we originally identified with business news and looking to other countries, seeing the circulation of business newspapers much higher per capita than the FT. And I mean, since then, the FT has lost close to 2/3 of their circulation. So the whole and the need is bigger. But I'd say the challenge with all the things that's coming in, you're confronting, has definitely changed since 2005.
Right. Lawson, Jens, thank you very much. I can still see that the Challenger brand is alive and well, and best of luck with City AM for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
What a dynamic duo. And if I've learned one thing from Jens and Lawson, it's that a great partnership matters. With the right idea, you can beat the odds. And that while London has every reason to be optimistic, no one can take that success for granted.